Baylor Director of Athletics, Mack Rhoades, with us most every Tuesday, unless he's on vacation, and then all hell breaks loose in college athletics, so he's not allowed to go anywhere. Joins us on 365 Sports. Mack, thank you very much for your time. I got a question for you. And all this discussion that ACC now has got some speculation going on with them and their grant of rights. How do you as a conference, if you know somebody is leaking information, how do you handle that when you guys get together with your meetings?
You know what? That's the first time I think I've ever been asked that question. I think it's one. It's just frankly, it's disheartening. It's disheartening when you have the conversation and the commissioner, right, asks that this stay, within the conference, not be talked about outside. And so I think it's disheartening. I think that, when there's, maybe that next meeting, I know that you address it, hit it head on, be frank about it, not talk around it. It's hard. It's hard because, as a leader, you're wanting to be transparent. You're wanting to share information. And then, all of a sudden you do, and you ask that it remain confidential, and it's in the media, 2 hours later. And so, it absolutely breaks down trust. And I think that's what makes it hard. But I think, you address it, with that individual.
Mack, the Big 12 is in as comfortable a position as it's been in a long time when it comes to its station in life and TV deals and where they're going forward. Other conferences on either coast are going through their shifts and growing pains, and especially in the ACC right now, it appears that there's some factioning going on. Obviously, the Big 12 went through that before, where there were factions of groups that wanted different things. Having been on both sides of that, how difficult is it to get through it when there are factions, and that how different is it now that while there might be smaller ones for different smaller issues, that everybody's pretty much on the same page with everything?
Yeah. Obviously it's a lot more peaceful and satisfying, gratifying when you're not going through those things. I think as you're going through those growing pains, or there's different groups within with different agendas. I think the best thing, right, is you would hope that those things would stay within, and obviously many times they're not, particularly with social media now, etc. But I think that you need to be really careful and thoughtful about what I think you say, and always come from the standpoint that this is never about just your institution. This is very similar to being part of a team that you're one of many, and it's the well-being of the group, and how you conduct and how you have those conversations, how you communicate, if you're displeased and have angst within that family. And Big 12 has certainly had its share, so I'm not pointing the finger at any one conference at all. But I think it's unfortunate that all of that has to be played out, publicly, and because I don't think it necessarily needs to. And look, at the end of the day, you signed up for being a part of this conference, and how you work within. Even when you're displeased, I think is really really important. So, it's difficult. They're difficult times to get through. And again, unfortunately, some of it is being played out publicly.
Mack, back in 21, after the Texas and Oklahoma story popped to the SEC, and there was a committee for expansion with Bob Bowlesby, then the commissioner, and I don't know who was on it. I'm sure you were, or whoever it was. Is that same committee? Is that the same committee that is a part of discussing any future expansion in the Big 12?
Yeah, no, it's different. That was a committee that it was two athletic directors. It was myself and another athletic director and two presidents, and that particular committee is not in play anymore. I think this time around, it's really spearheaded by our commissioner. It's certainly our multimedia TV consultant, and it's been out there. It's we're using Endeavor, and by the way, they've done an unbelievable job for the conference. And then I think in terms of member institutions, I think all of us have an opportunity to provide input and speak into it. So that's really how we're navigating, handling what's next when you think about just the composition, the future composition of the conference. And again, what I worry about quite frankly is if at the end of the day we remain at 12 once Oklahoma and Texas end up transitioning to the SEC, and how that's going to be perceived. And it should be perceived as extremely positive. Let's not change membership, add to membership just to add to membership, right? It has to be value add. And I think we've talked about it. It's not about really truly about this upcoming TV contract, which begins July 1, 2025 and expires on June 30, 2031. It's really about that next one. How do we set ourselves up for July 1, 2031, as we think about adding value, as we think about, our TV partners, just wanting to be, really, really strategic on how we think about that. And, we'll enter into the marketplace, that next time in 2031, right after the Big Ten, but before the SEC. I believe the SEC is in 33, and then before the ACC in 36. And so I think we're well positioned. And again, I think it's smart for us to be thinking about, even though it's only 2023, what that looks like, what we look like in 2031.
I want to make sure I clarify. You say that when Texas and Oklahoma leave for the SEC, that you still, as the Big 12 is with what's left, the 12 teams, including the new 4, should be perceived as a positive?
Yeah, it should be perceived as a very positive. I think that, if membership doesn't change and it's, the original 8 and the 4 new, I think the conference is in great position to continue to move forward. And so I don't think we live or die if we add to membership or we don't. I think we're in a really great position right now. And if we're going to add membership, let's make sure it's really value add. And so again, there may be opportunity, add to membership, and there may not be.
Mm-hmm.
And we're all waiting to see where that lands.
Does that mean if you add anybody anytime in the next, let's say, year or three or whenever, with a lot of the percolation out there of what's going on with conferences, but if you were to add a team or two, do they need to make sure that you as a team, a University, Baylor, or Iowa State, whoever it is, Oklahoma State, Tech, are going to make at least what you're making now and it doesn't lower the number?
Yeah, I think that's really, a fair statement that, and I don't want to say, in absolute terms, but I do think, it is a fair statement that, if we were to add somebody, a school, 2 institutions, 3, 4, and it's within this upcoming TV contract. I think, all of us would want to know that, our revenue distribution is going to stay, the same, or close to the same. And when I think about close to the same, I think the way we, probably absorb close to the same is that we know, or we believe, that there will be a big return on investment when we get to that second contract in July of 2031. So, I'm not going to say absolute. Look, if it was, a few dollars short of what now, that we would sit and go, well, no way. That wouldn't be very smart of us if that potentially led to a big gain, again in 2031.
When Yormark came up with the idea to extend the contract earlier than a lot of people thought, and it probably in a way changed what other conferences are dealing with now, what was your initial reaction when he said, hey, let's extend right now for stability? Was there any ADs, presidents who said, no, we need to wait? Was there any pushback to that?
Yeah, I don't honestly, I don't recall any pushback whatsoever. I was in favor of it, because I still think there was uncertainty. You're beginning to feel some uncertainty with the economy. Didn't know, right, how free, media companies were going to be able to bid and bid up, other than, what I thought was a very unique situation with the Big Ten, which, had started earlier. The downside, right, was there was no competition, for our, 2 present and ongoing, partners in ESPN and Fox. But I thought the stability question was the biggest question that we needed to answer, the biggest hurdle we needed to go over. And, the way to do that was to, sooner rather than later, show that we had, TV partnership for the future. And, again, and I've said it before on this show, right now, and it's not complete because we don't know what will happen with the Pac-12, but right now, I think there's pretty good odds that we will be the only conference that's on both of those platforms, both ESPN and Fox, the 2 biggest platforms for college sports. And but I thought we needed to sooner rather than later. When things are uncertain, when there's not clarity, that's when I think you're extremely liable or vulnerable to the things that you can't control, i.e., people looking other directions. Is there any appetite, other conferences, etc. So I thought, it was a great move by our commissioner.
Mac, the college football money, and you've kind of broken down how much, whatever the 31.7, whatever that number is, and how it's broken down. But do you see college basketball, men's basketball, at some point having their own deal that brings in more revenue, but also is separate from the TV deals with Fox or ESPN or anybody else? And is that also why a Gonzaga or someone else is very interesting or intriguing to bring into a conference?
Yeah. I think it starts with there is a case to be made that men's basketball is somewhat undervalued. And you could potentially say that with women's basketball as well, but primarily men's basketball, I think you could confidently say that, hey, it's more than likely undervalued. Well, how do you change that, right? If you continue to go out, to the market, to your existing current media partners, and you have both football and men's basketball combined together, I'm just not sure that you end up increasing that value. If you're able to go and separate men's basketball and go bid that completely different, then I think you have a chance. There's some some nuances, some uniqueness within the market that may drive better value than what than what you've been receiving when it's been packaged. And so I think that remains to be seen. But I think that's why you would look at somebody like a Gonzaga, which obviously Baylor has a history with, but they've been a program that has been in the top 10. It feels like consistently for at least the last decade, and so that's why again you might look at them and or some others. But right now when you think about a TV package, a partnership where they're both together, there's probably it's about 85% value to football and 15% value to men's basketball. And so how do you increase that value? I think there's a case to be made that you take that and you separate men's basketball out on its own.
Mac, last question. We appreciate your time. It's the finals and graduation, Board of Regents meetings. There are still championships to be won. Overall, how would you describe 2022-2023 in the Baylor Athletic Department? There have been some of your higher revenue teams like basketball and football. Men's basketball really good, but out in 2 days, 2 games. Football was not, it didn't end very well. How would you describe overall how you would summarize the year?
Yeah, I really do appreciate that question. And so I think you guys know, right, we judge and monitor and gauge, our sports in terms of the 4 pillars, athletic success, academic achievement, spiritual growth, character formation. And I would say, 3 of the 4 pillars, we've been as good. We've done some great things in those pillars. And so it's hard to match some previous years, but I think we've been really, really good and continue to be. And those 3 pillars are extremely important when we think about well-being of our student athletes being on their time here at Baylor. I think when it comes to the athletic success, this is where, for me, again, just being, candid, maybe even vulnerable with you and listeners, I have to have perspective, and it has to start with me. When you compare, season to season, sport to sport, I think you could say that, it wasn't as good a year for some sport programs as it was previous years. And I think that's a fair statement. But I also think that those programs, which again, and I'm talking about, football, talking about men's basketball, I'm talking about women's basketball, right? They still went to postseason play. And, for better or for worse, we have set the standard so high here that if you don't replicate it each and every year, you have a hard time dealing with perspective. You feel disappointed. And so just trying to manage and navigate all of that, I think has been good for us. It's been healthy for us. It forces you to take, maybe a different look, a different lens. Now, I will tell you that even when we've had our greatest successes, we've tried to move forward and act like we didn't do anything, like, hey, that's past. And we need to make sure we're evaluating everything, talking about everything counts, everything matters. So, I think, to answer the question specifically, I think it was a very good year. Is it what we're necessarily used to in those three sports? No. Do I think those three sports have great futures ahead of them? And as soon as next year, absolutely. I think all of our other sport programs, again, when you think about volleyball, get to a Sweet 16, and women's soccer, first year head coach, and baseball, with Coach Thompson, baseball to me very reminiscent of Matt Rhoades' first year where it was 1-11, but you could see progress, right? You could feel it. The kids never gave up, competed hard, 60 minutes, never ever any finger pointing, right? Well, I see the same thing with baseball. I think Mitch and the staff have done a great job of implementing, their culture and building a base. You've got, our golf programs, women moving on to the NCAA finals, and men right now, I don't know what they shot today, but yesterday off to a good start in regionals. Both tennis programs went to postseason. Equestrian went to postseason. And my goodness, acrobatics and tumbling wins their 8th straight national championship. So, I think when you combine and you look at all of the sports, all of our 19 sport programs, how track and field men particularly competed in indoor, right? Wow, that was a really, really good athletic year. Now you focus on those three, and yeah, it's probably, even though they all went to postseason, it didn't meet the standard that we're all used to.
Mac, thank you.
That was a really long answer.
No,
sorry.
No. I mean, I can understand you touching on all the good things and also those that were good but not good enough. I appreciate your response, your access, and we appreciate your time, and have a great week. Thank you.
Hey, and by the way, I left out softball, which is playing in a regional at Utah starting on Friday. So appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Mack Rhoades, Baylor Director of Athletics on 365 Sports.